I think it helps me stay centered. It helps me be a role model for students. That's one of the biggest things I think that's important. As a person who grew up without a parent or without a father, I just understood how important role modeling was. Once I think when I got into the military and I met some powerful males that were, for lack of a better word, like father figures. When I first got into the military, my first couple years as my first year as a private, I was assigned as a driver to a guy who's a general now. He's an African American male. He was a family man, and he taught me a lot of things that I just didn't know from growing up in the environment that I did. It was interesting. He was the first African American male that didn't fit a certain stereotype. That whole year that I served with him taught me a lot, because he's like, hey, we grew up in the same background, and if I can achieve these things, you can do it. So that kind of plays into the things that I think about, and also when you compound that with my faith, it kind of just governs the way that I behave. So I always try to be a role model for students, because I know even when I don't see them, they see me, and I want to be kind of a role model for them. Stay substance and drug free. That's the biggest advice that I can give to anyone. A promising person or actually, when I was born, she was well into using drugs, but I actually talked to my older aunts and uncles who knew her before that, and they talked about how promising she was, how gifted she was in high school, and how the person that I grew up with was nothing like who they knew. And so that was just something that taught me an important lesson. To this day, I've never drank or smoked, just because I am very wary of where alcohol or any kind of substances can take you. So those are the things that I would say as advice, is just to stay away from any kind of substances, those things you don't need. I wish that they all would be, I think, successful and productive. Also, I guess above all that, I wish that they would get stronger. They would get stronger and grow in their faith, and they would create a relationship with their faith and be grounded in that. And I think that would lead to everything else that I would want for them. I think that would lead to it. So I think. Is, along with my faith, my appreciation of education. Obtaining education, whether it's technical, trade schools, 2-year, 4-year college, grad school, is probably the best thing that you can do for yourself. It can transition you. It can help your life immensely. It can make you such a better person and better off. I was graduated from high school with no criminal records. The difference is, afterwards, I invested my energy in going to college and doing well there. They invested their energy in becoming better drug dealers or better criminals. And around 5 years, the difference showed. I graduated, got a job, went off overseas, saw different parts of the world. A lot of them went to prison. And then when they see me, like, we have our reunions and we get together, and they're like, man, I remember when because I used to always take my friends and say, man, come on, let's go fill this application out. They'd be like, man, I'm not doing that. I'm about to go over here and get some money. And they would not fill out applications. I remember to the point that I used to be like, okay, well, if you just sign the bottom of the application, I'll fill it out for you. And some of them got accepted. And it's funny to see them like 20 years later, and they're like, you know what? I could have went to the same school you did. I wish I had did something different. And so I just see the difference in education, because education took me from that poor person who had to depend on the government, had no control of myself, to someone who could provide for my family and be a role model, and able to live in a nice area. Whereas I remember I went back to visit. I always do like a 20-year later picture. I found a picture of me when I was a kid living there, and then I went back to that same area, stood in front of that same project unit, and took a picture, and I put them next to each other. And I just think about that. What took me from there to there was the commitment to education. So that's the transformative fact. That's a transformational agent that we all should invest in. Yeah. So if a person saw you and you didn't know they were looking at you, and you didn't know they were there, and they saw you, when you left, what would they think of you? If they emulated you once you walked off, would it be something positive or would it be something negative?